I would say to collaborate. Because it's hard to think now that one research group can on its own, without collaboration, reach a high impact factor. It's a hard work, and you need collaboration because the reviewer and the scientific community is more and more demanding. So it's very rare that you are full-handed to answer the questions and to address the hypothesis. So you will need the help from others. So you will have to gather the methodology to other groups and to put all the pieces together to write a. You have to be on the groundbreaking things, so really on hot spots, and you have to work hard and fast. Because sometimes it's highly, not sometimes, most of the time it's highly competitive. Okay. So you have to also to have a good level in English, to write well in English. Because if a paper is not well written, most of the times they won't read it really carefully, because it's the reviewer are reluctant with the bad English written manuscripts. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's important also. So the quality of the work itself and the quality also of the writing, both are important.
Yeah, I think it starts, of course, with a good idea and a well-designed study. And if you have research where you basically fill all the gaps within this study, I think you can. It's nice to do that, and then you have a high chance of having a high impact journal. The results you cannot always. I mean, you can have hypotheses, but they can also be wrong, of course. But even if you have then a well-designed study, and you looked at all aspects of that study, then you can have a high impact journal. But that also depends on, I think, more on the outcome also of your study. So if you have very nice results that are really new, innovative, in combination with a very well-designed experiment, then you can reach journals like Nature and Science or Lancet. Yeah, but then you also really have to have good results.
I think probably will be, if you really want to publish in Nature and Science, is probably the thing that you need to take into consideration before you apply for the PhD. If this group is like publishing in Nature and Science regularly, then there's a good chance that if you do your PhD there, you will also be able to reach this kind of top journal. And if you look into this group, they just never have like Nature Science. It's not impossible, but it will be more difficult because you will be the first one who publish in that journal, and like it's more difficult. Probably not a lot of help you can get. Okay. And, yeah, just look into the group that publish Nature and Science regularly, find this kind of group, and then do a PhD there.
Well, all I know, these really high impact factor journals, they have all kinds of rules to adhere to. So when you're in the beginning of your PhD and that is your ambition, which, hey, that's cool, you can do that, then I would say, what do you need to do? Well, I think you need to make a prospective, random control trial in most of the cases. It's got to probably be a multi-center study, and you got to do something relatively new that is meaningful. Well, that takes a lot of time. Are you going to do that in 2 years if you do an MD PhD? Probably not. But if you have 4 years, you can do that. If that's your ambition, it's going to be a lot of work, but you can absolutely do that. But look at the rules first and work from there before you choose the subject as well. And tell your supervisor that that is your ambition. Because sometimes you can be full of ambition and your supervisor is not. You know? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean yeah, your supervisor is there, but it doesn't mean your supervisor wants the same as you. Maybe he just wants the money that your position gives him to be able to do other things, and he just needs you to go through those 4 years without any harm, but also not too much distraction from his own work, yeah, then you're never going to be able to do that, because if you want to publish in these high impact factor journals, you need his help. He will need to put a lot of work in as well, because you need his connections, his network, his ideas, but also his work, because there's a lot of stuff needs to be done when you do a good randomized controlled trial. I can imagine. I've never done a good one, so that's really hard. But yeah, you got to be open about that if that is your ambition. Don't assume that all the other people above you want the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, right question. Have by some reason this? I think it depends on the data as well. If you have this brilliant data set, yeah, you will be able to read Nature. If you have to build your data set from scratch, it'll be pretty tough. And a high amount of luck. I think reaching those journals, yeah, definitely depends on luck.
Okay.
And on good questions, good data.
Okay. What makes a good question?
So in my case, I'm studying first episode of psychosis. So it means if the knowledge is really relevant for the patient populations, if the clinicians are able to use it in their own practices. So it means if it's really relevant for patients' health and well-being. And if it's something very new, yeah, sure enough. If it's something we ideally want to know 5 years in advance, then something you will get published.
Personally, I would say that fundamental research matters, and these type of research have a higher stance of reaching in high impact factor journals. Because if you see Nature, and if you read an article from Nature, I think anyone can understand, because it's the most fundamental research, and probably people, if they focus on this, they have a opportunity to present their article in a high impact factor journal.
Okay. What do you mean by fundamental?
Well, focusing on extremely important research questions at a molecular level, for example. But in our case, we do PET imaging, which is more macroscopic. But then if you combine it with postmortem analysis, and then it has a chance to then reach in a high impact factor journal. You combine both elements together, and then you have a higher chance.
I have no idea. I'm asking these questions my supervisors, but don't be the answer is always don't be focused on impact factor, and that's true, right? I mean, it's nice that they are saying this, that you should not be focused on impact factor, but it also depends on what is the message of your study, what is the impact of your study on other studies or on the field. If impact is very little, you cannot jump over that. This is what it is. Just be very realistic.